Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon live on Fox Local, fox13news.com, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. We have a busy show ahead, so I want to let you know some of what you can expect. Coming up at 2:50, we're going to talk with Theron White about Universal announcing an expansion of their previews of Epic Universe. You don't have to be a pass holder anymore to get those preview tickets. We'll have all the details coming up later in the show. At 2:40, we're going to talk about a must-win tonight for the Magic. Their backs are against the wall. If they want to keep their season alive, they have to win. We'll talk with Tyler Caron about that. The potential abolition of property taxes in the state of Florida took a step forward with an announcement today from House Speaker Danny Perez. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll also show you a video of an officer in Sarasota stopping a spinning boat. That'll be coming up in our Tampa connection. But we begin today with an arrest over some Xbox threats. This is a case that happened in Flagler County, but spanned all the way to Maine, where this suspect was arrested, a 32-year-old man from Maine, arrested, now facing charges in connection with threatening to kill a Flagler County resident and their family. Joining us live now via Zoom to talk about this is Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staly. And Sheriff Staly, always good to talk with you. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Good afternoon, Garrett.
So this is an interesting case here, a 2.5-year investigation that ends with someone who lives halfway across the country now behind bars.
Well, that's true. A lot of people think they can be a keyboard warrior and make all kinds of threats and do what they do on a keyboard, and you can't be caught. Well, I have a cyber crimes unit and I have a great digital forensics unit. And this individual found out that you can't get away. It may take some time, like it did in this case, because we have to rely on subpoenas and private companies answering those subpoenas. And quite often that triggers a second round of subpoenas. So it takes some time and then we have to analyze it. But, when we've identified who this keyboard warrior was and got the data in from the subpoenas, we worked with the local sheriff's office and police department in Maine, and I sent detectives up there. So we will go wherever you are. If you're going to make a threat to kill someone in our county or blow up their house or kill their family, we're going to get you. It may take a little time, but we will get you and we will go to where you are to make sure that happens.
And this is the suspect, 32-year-old James Maynard of Pittsfield, Maine. What can you tell us about this situation? Because it sounds like these were pretty violent, pretty serious threats made against someone over the Xbox network.
Problems with gamers in gaming. Most people that do this, 99% of them are fine, but then arguments happen. And so they get behind these keyboards and they start making arguments, and then they say things that they're going to regret later, which is what this young man found out. So, play your games, whatever you're doing, but don't lose your temper, because in Florida, we take it serious and we will go after you. And it is a crime to make a threat to kill someone or place a bomb, those kind of things.
Is that how this started, an argument over a video game?
That's our understanding. We don't have the exact details on what triggered it, but this individual had been in an argument with our victim back in July of 2022. Then he changed his online name, despite our victim trying to block him and do those kind of things to protect themselves. And our victim at the time was a juvenile who reported it to his father, who called us.
It's certainly a serious situation. What challenges do investigations like this create for your agency when you're talking about the technology platforms, the distance, all of those things? What sort of challenges kind of come up in a case like this?
Well, all of those are challenges, as you just described, not only the distance, but trying to find the digital footprint and verify who is the keyboard warrior. And all of those take time to do, and it takes technology and it takes trained investigators. And unfortunately, a lot of agencies around the country do not have this capability. But we know that if we can find the digital footprint of the individual, the criminal, we can find them. It takes a lot of work. They do a lot of things to try to hide their identity. But you may recall about a year ago, we extradited an 11-year-old from Virginia for threatening, basically, he was an online terrorist to our school system at the end of the last school year. So we take this serious. We have the capability, and we will do everything we can to bring a case to an arrest.
You talked about the victim in this case was a teenager at the time.
That's correct.
So you talked about this teenager trying to block the suspect, but the suspect continuing to change their profile, and yet the victim also talked about this with his parents, and they were able to bring this to you. So what is the message here to parents and to other kids out there who play these video games and communicate with other people on there?
So for parents, the message would be know what your kids are doing online and be engaged with them. Not just be a friend, but be the parent. Know they can come to you when things are going wrong, especially online, before they get attacked or extortion occurs. All different kinds of things can occur on the internet. And to the kids, ideally know who you're gaming with. Now, that's not always going to be possible because you could be gaming with somebody anywhere in the country and anywhere in the world. But try to get to know this person and identify. Now, don't send them your pictures if they ask for inappropriate pictures, things like that. Don't do that because you're going to fall prey to another crime like sextortion. But in this case, there was some interaction, both by voice and by photo. And then our victim was able to recognize the voice from the July incident to the October incident and was able to pick out our suspect in a photo lineup. And then we have all the digital technology that took us to prove who was doing it.
So it does sounds like the victim, the parents did everything right in this case, and things were able to be taken care of before they got even further out of hand. So Sheriff Rick Staly, Flagler County Sheriff, we appreciate your time. Appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live this afternoon. And we are going to take a break, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. We don't want to go back to Monday. Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay. I saw the look on your face when I said Monday, Nancy. I don't think you want to go backward to Monday either.
No, definitely don't want to go backwards to Monday. Just got to keep moving forward. Don't need to have Monday happen again.
Yeah, once a week is definitely enough. So take us through our Tampa Connection here. I know you're continuing to follow up on this deadly ferry crash in Clearwater.
Yes, we are learning more about this ferry crash and specifically more about the driver who was operating the boat that crashed into the ferry. Officials say that man is local businessman Jeffrey Knight. He owns Janus Live, as well as other restaurants in the area. He was operating a 37-foot recreational boat at the time of the crash that killed one person, 41-year-old Jose Castro, and sent 10 others to area hospitals. Now, officials say that Knight is cooperating with the investigation and did do a voluntary breathalyzer test that came back with a reading of 0. Now, Knight does have a record of arrests for driving while impaired in 1992, 2002, and in 2012. He did plead no contest to each one of those charges and received probation as well as fines. Now, also in 2012, a passenger on a different one of Knight's private boats fell overboard and died. Now, there are still two major questions remaining from Sunday night's deadly Clearwater ferry crash. Why did Knight's boat hit the ferry, and why didn't he remain at the scene? Now, defense attorney Anthony Rickman, who is not involved in this case, spoke with Fox 13, and he told us that felony counts could be on the way if investigators find evidence of reckless driving and/or failure to render aid at the scene. However, Rickman does point out that the law does not punish pure accidents. He says that the state will be also looking into whether Knight left to render aid to someone who was on his boat. He was traveling with 6 people on his boat at the time of the crash. Now, failure to render aid, failure to stop, or leaving the scene of a vessel crash is a third-degree felony that in Florida is punishable by 5 years in prison. The state attorney's office is investigating, and that investigation is still ongoing. So far, no charges have been filed. Officials do say that Knight and his passengers are cooperating with their investigation. Garrett?
So still a lot of questions in that investigation, still some things that we will have to wait and see what happens. I know folks are watching that closely when it comes to the state attorney's side of things and whether there could be potential charges filed in that.
Yes, this is definitely something people are paying attention to because the questions still remain. Why didn't he stop, and why did his boat hit that ferry in the first place? So that's definitely something that they're investigating. Now, initially, this was being reported as a hit-and-run crash. However, during yesterday's press conference, law enforcement officials kind of backed away from saying that it was a hit-and-run crash, saying that everything is still under investigation.
All right, let's go to our second story of the day here, and that is been a lot of talk about FEMA and potential changes to it when it comes to responding to natural disasters across the country. And one of the people who it sounds like is going to have some say in the direction that it goes is someone with a Tampa connection.
Yes, that's right. Tampa Mayor Jane Caster was tapped by President Donald Trump to help streamline FEMA in a new direction. Now, obviously, Mayor Caster has a lot of experience when it comes to disaster response following last year's back-to-back storms. She even noted this during her State of the City yesterday. Now, President Trump selected leaders from across the country to be a part of his bipartisan FEMA Review Council. They are not only going to be tasked with seeing how FEMA can be improved, but also to look at how disaster relief efforts could be better handled going forward directly through state governments. Now, in a statement after this announcement, Caster said parts of Tampa and much of Tampa Bay were devastated by hurricanes Helene and 13 days later, Milton. Thousands of Tampa Bay residents lost critical importance of emergency services in response to vulnerable communities like Tampa. She said she is pleased to be part of this council. Now let's hear what she had to say about this being a bipartisan council.
Politics should even come in it at all. You know, hurricanes don't choose which party that they're going to aim their forces at. Hurricanes are something that affect everyone. And of course, FEMA deals with all types of emergencies, but our expertise here in Florida, unfortunately, is with hurricanes. And hurricanes don't choose by political party. So putting together a group that has experience and different perspectives to take a look at the organization, again, I'm proud to have been chosen for that.
Now, Caster wasn't the only Floridian selected by President Trump. Florida Division of Emergency Management Executive Director Kevin Guthrie, as well as Miami-Dade County Sheriff Rosie Cordero, were also tapped to be a part of this council. This council was created back in January, just days after President Trump took office, claiming that FEMA required an overhaul to improve efficiency for disaster response and providing aid. When announcing the appointees on Truth Social, President Trump said that he trusted the appointees to fix a broken system. Garrett.
All right, and our third story of the day here, some scary moments caught on camera with a boat in distress in Sarasota.
Yes, definitely. There were some tense moments yesterday when a man fell off a boat in Sarasota and his boat kept going unmanned until a Sarasota police officer was able to jump on board and stop that boat. As you mentioned, this entire incident was caught on camera. There's some incredible video you see right there. Now, police say they received numerous phone calls about an unmanned boat traveling about 40 miles per hour just north of the Ringling Museum. According to police, the boater was tossed from his vessel after a larger boat cut him off and he went through its wake. During a press conference this morning, officers said that the boater actually broke 2 fingers when he fell overboard, and once he got his wits about him, he saw his unmanned vessel traveling within 5 feet of him. Now, body cam video does show that officer leaping on board and shutting down the boat. Investigators say the boater was not wearing a life jacket and did not have an emergency cutoff switch on him. In Florida, all boats under 26 feet are required to have an emergency cutoff switch. That's something you can attach to your clothing. You can wear it around your ankle or your wrist, and that if you fall off, it does stop that boat's engine. Now, this law was passed in 2022 and is named Ethan's Law after 10-year-old Ethan Isaacs, who died in a sailing accident 2 years earlier. Garrett.
Yeah, it's crazy to see that video. Glad everything turned out okay with it. It never ceases to amaze me when we see those unmanned boats and the officers jumping on to get them under control. Crazy stuff, but glad everything ended up okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy, wild video. And as you mentioned, like, everything did turn out okay because that officer was able to jump on board and stop the boat. But what was even crazier is hearing that the boater who fell overboard, I mean, you can't even imagine. You fall over, you're hurt, you kind of stumbling, you look around and you see your own boat coming towards you and coming within 5 feet of you. That's got to be pretty scary. But as you mentioned, this definitely had a very positive ending to it.
All right, Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Here's a live look at the state Senate on the left, the state House on the right, as the legislative session continues in Tallahassee on this Tuesday morning. And there have been a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Florida politics. And so joining us live now via Zoom is Kimberly Leonard, who is a reporter with Politico and also the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter that you can get in your inbox every weekday. And Kimberly, we always like catching up with you here on our Playbook Tuesdays. So we appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to start here, if we can. A lot of talk about immigration actions when it comes to the Trump administration. But as you reported in Florida Playbook this morning, some of those actions are becoming ad fodder with some billboards popping up in South Florida. What's the situation?
Look, leading up to the 2024 election, Republicans felt like they had a lot to work with when it came to the Biden administration's actions on immigration. First of all, they thought they weren't tough enough. But second of all, they really thought that the Biden administration dropped the ball when it came to reaching a deal with Venezuela on their elections. And so all the weeks and weeks leading up to our election here in the US, they really used that against Democrats. They essentially called them socialist sympathizers, and they did so pretty effectively. I mean, Miami-Dade went very heavily Republican. It went to Trump. But now there's a different president in the White House. And so there are outside groups, there are Democrats that are using Trump's actions, his decisions to revoke TPS protections, which help people who are fleeing countries with persecution to be able to work in the United States. They tried to revoke those protections. They've been blocked by the courts, but obviously it's a long process to get things, appealed and so forth. The Democrats are really now flipping the script, turning things around to Republicans and saying, you're not doing anything. Why aren't you standing up to Trump? And they're really targeting, there's a bunch of billboards that went up here in Miami-Dade County where I live that are targeting our three, Miami lawmakers, House members to say, y'all need to speak out against this. You need to do more. And so it's trying to put pressure on those members who so effectively were able to talk about immigration before.
And what is the response from those lawmakers?
Not a whole lot, although Representative Salazar has been the most vocal, I would say, in terms of defending herself, defending her record. I mean, it makes sense. We have a very big immigrant community down here in Miami-Dade County. A lot of people, who have relatives that are afraid to have them go back to places like Venezuela where it's not safe. And so it could be something that is a liability, although, it's a lot of voters are still we're not comfortable with a lot of the policies that the Biden administration has had before and might also remember that. So we do see Democrats beginning to sort of shape their messaging heading up to 2026. And it's a pretty big effort, especially with the House having such a narrow majority for Republicans.
And speaking of Democrats and messaging, let's talk at the state level here with the Florida Democrats vowing to push forward after an interesting couple of days when it came to leadership of specifically the Senate caucus.
Yeah, their big hold my beer moment to Republicans, right? I mean, Republicans have been fighting with the governor just for months now. Everything, all the anger toward him was sort of spilled out in the open. And then we now know that Democrats also do not like each other, that they didn't like their very Senate leader, the state Senate leader, Pizzo, who announced from the Senate floor that he was no longer going to be a Democrat. He declared the state party dead. He seemed very frustrated. He was someone that had been talked about as potentially running for governor. I don't know yet whether that's off the table or not. He could run as a no party affiliated or a third party candidate, which may end up handing the state to the Republican. But there is a lot of anger within the Democratic Party. A lot of it too has to do with how little investment they got from the national party. And there's just a sort of, I'm reporting more on it now, but there's a sort of feeling that there's a lack of direction, that the state party needs to understand to set very much more realistic goals, essentially, and not to make claims about trying to take back Florida, but maybe just to build the bench to have more sort of municipal level school board types elected to office before eventually, trying to really compete at the statewide level. So there's a lot of infighting, and I think we saw that spill through. And, Pizzo was the third Democrat in the legislature to flip. The two others went Republican, he went NPA, but still, I think it shows that there's a lot of unhappiness within the party that they have yet to sort out.
Yeah, still a lot of questions, and it was interesting to hear from the new Senate Democratic Caucus leader about some of her disagreements with Pizzo's take on where things stand and that kind of thing, and kind of where things go from here. So it's something to watch closely, I think, given the advantages that the Republicans already hold here.
Absolutely. And any infighting makes it a lot more difficult for Democrats just to get the state back to, swing state status, which is really their goal. But if you don't get along, then that makes it a lot harder. Of course, we see Republicans are also not getting along, and yet they seem to be just continuing to grow their voter registration. So, maybe it's not the case.
Last thing I'll ask you here, because you mentioned the Republican infighting. It has added up to some interesting kind of closing days here in the legislative session as well, where there's still a lot of questions when it comes to the budget, no action on property insurance, as I know you talked about in Florida Playbook. So some interesting things happening in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and just new today, actually, from the House floor, the speaker announced that they would be creating a commission, essentially, to look at what to do with property taxes. He put out a bunch of different proposals. He said, let's look at increasing the homestead exemption. Let's look at properties only getting appraised every few years. He basically had like a laundry list of things to look at. And from the governor's allies and comments on social media, they were not happy about this. This was a huge priority for the governor. He wants to see, he said he wants to see property taxes abolished altogether. I do get the sense that he would accept any kind of a win that reduces property taxes. But this is, it represents a little bit of a give by Perez to say, by the House Speaker, to say, let's try to meet you halfway, but still not something the governor is happy to accept, it seems like to me, from what I've seen so far.
All right, more interesting things to watch going forward. No shortage of that, it seems like these days. Kimberly Leonard, Politico reporter and Florida Playbook author. We always appreciate you joining us, and good talking to you today here on Florida Live.
You too. Thanks so much.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. We were just talking with Kimberly Leonard about some things in Tallahassee. And earlier today, House Speaker Danny Perez speaking about the process to potentially abolish property taxes in the state of Florida, something that would require a constitutional amendment to be voted on by the state's voters. He talked about Governor DeSantis floating the idea, but not necessarily ever bringing forward a specific plan. And so the speaker announced today he's appointing a select committee on property taxes that will meet starting this week. Here's some of what he said about his ideas and what he wants to see come as this process continues.
Members, welcome back to week 9. We have a lot of work to do this week, and I know all of you have questions on the budget, and Chairman McClure will be updating you throughout the day on updates of the budget. However, as we narrowly focused, as we have been, on what we are doing, we all know that the issues facing our state cannot be resolved in a single regular session. And so as we approach the end of this chapter, I want to take a moment to open the page to the next. One of the issues that has garnered a great deal of media attention has been the issue of property taxes. The Republican legislature has been actively engaged in the property tax conversation for the last couple of decades. This House has consistently rallied against property taxes as a flawed revenue source, and homestead property taxes specifically as being inconsistent with our belief in private property and the economic mobility that comes with home ownership. We have passed a number of laws and placed several constitutional amendments on the ballot. Several months ago, Governor DeSantis introduced the exciting and provocative idea of abolishing property taxes in Florida. Naturally, many of us had the same questions. How would elimination of property taxes work? If property taxes go away, how would local governments pay for the services we expect local government to provide, like police, fire, and infrastructure? Unfortunately, as the weeks have gone by, the governor has yet to come forward with any specific answer to those questions, or with any specific plan, or with actual bill language. The Florida Constitution prohibits the state legislature from exercising direct control over property taxes. Any property tax reforms would need to be placed on the November 2026 ballot for consideration by the voters of Florida. However, given the importance of this issue, we cannot afford further delay in moving this conversation beyond promises or generalities. We need to put time in order to give stakeholders a meaningful opportunity to engage and make sure that we put the very best proposal or proposals on the ballot as amendments to the Florida Constitution. Today, I will be appointing a select committee on property taxes to do this important work. This select committee will meet beginning this week with the goal of producing one or more joint resolutions by the start of our fall committee weeks. It is my intention to pass our House property tax plan in the first week of session in January of 2026 for consideration on the November 2026 ballot. I have asked Representatives Toby Overdorf and Vicki Lopez to co-chair the Select Committee on Property Taxes. Members, if you are interested in serving on this committee, please notify the Speaker's office or Chairs Overdorf or Lopez by the end of session today. I will be making these appointments by tomorrow. However, please remember that this Select Committee will be meeting throughout the rest of spring, summer, and into the fall. So if you are interested, be prepared to work. Members, one of the things I have learned about our committee process over the years is that our process is most effective when we can build our conversations around specifics rather than generalities. In other words, saying property taxes are bad isn't the basis for developing a plan. To jumpstart the conversation for the Select Committee, I have developed 5 proposals that touch on different aspects of property taxes. These proposals which our staff is distributing to you now, are intended to be a springboard for the committee's work. They are a starting point. They are not an end goal. Our 5 House proposals for property tax reform, all of which will require a constitutional amendment, include the following. Number 1, requiring every city, county, and special district to hold a referendum on the elimination of homestead property taxes. This would allow the taxpayers and the taxing authorities to have an open and honest conversation about what services they are receiving for the taxes and whether they wish to continue to pay those taxes. In the United States of America, no taxes should be levied unless the people choose to allow themselves to be taxed. Number 2, creating a new $500,000 homestead property tax exemption for non-school property taxes. That $500,000 exemption would be increased to $1 million for homeowners who are over the age of 65 or who have had a homestead in Florida for over 30 years. This proposal would provide expansive, broad-based property tax relief for working and middle-class Floridians and provide enhanced protections for our seniors and long-term homeowners. Number 3, authorizing the state legislature to raise the amount of the homestead exemption by state statute. This change would allow to address issues related to property taxes without having to go to the ballot. Number 4, enhancing Florida's assessment limitation caps for homestead and non-homestead properties. We could change the homestead assessment cap from 3% per year to 3% every 3 years. And for non-homestead assessments, we would adjust the cap from 10% per year to 15% every 3 years. This proposal would not only provide Floridians with stability in their tax payments, but it would also significantly slow the growth of local government's revenue and spending. Number 5, prohibit government from foreclosing on a homestead property for unpaid taxes. One of the cornerstones of housing policy in Florida has been the sanctity of the homestead. This change would put government on the same footing as private sector creditors and ensure that the government cannot kick any Floridian out of their home due to their inability to pay a tax. As I said earlier, these proposals are simply a starting point. I expect this select committee to dive deep, to ask the hard questions, and to listen to the critics and get creative. Members, if you have ideas, we want to ensure that the select committee has the opportunity to hear from you. If the governor comes forward with a proposal, we will hear it. All ideas are welcomed. All voices are invited to be heard. This process is not about ego or pride of authorship or credit. This is about bringing the very best proposals before the people of Florida so that they have an opportunity to decide their own fate. Again, members, if you're interested in serving on this select committee and are willing to put in the time that it will take, please put in your request to either myself or to Chairs Overdorf or Lopez before the end of session today. I am not oblivious to the impact that property tax reform would have on local governments, but we, as a House, have a unique credibility on this front as we proposed doing something neither the governor nor the Senate were willing to do: apply the same revenue restrictions to ourselves that we are asking local governments to endure. I believe we can find our way through this complicated problem. I am very excited to see what this select committee will produce, and I have incredible confidence in the wisdom and judgment of this House. This conversation will be tomorrow's challenge, but now We have to get back to today's work.
A lot to watch with that moving forward. Again, those meetings scheduled to start this week. We'll have more coverage for you on Florida Live. We are going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back in just a minute. So keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Well, if the Orlando Magic want to keep their season alive, they have to win tonight. There's no other option at this point. Joining us live now to talk about it and how they might be able to make that happen is Tyler Karen, co-host and producer on 96.9 The Game. And Tyler, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Always a pleasure to talk some Orlando Magic basketball with you, gentlemen. And this might be it tonight, might be the final time. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the Magic find a way to come out on top.
Yeah, don't say that. Don't say it's the last time. But honestly, if we're judging it based on their past performances in this series, I hate to say that you are probably right. It seemed like there was hope in that last game when the Magic were able to tie the game up at 91, and then it just seemed like things fell off from there. I mean, that they just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, it knotted up at 91. It's a 4-minute ball game, which when you're in that 2-7 round one series, the odds are against you. You're going up against the defending champs. That's about all the most that you can ask for is to play in a 4-minute ball game in front of your home crowd. And the Magic executed not great, but not awfully down the last couple of minutes in game 4. What the big difference maker was turnovers and free throws that they allowed for the Boston Celtics. The Celtics had the advantage at the charity stripe all night, 32 attempts, knocking down 30 of them. You look at the Magic and what ended up being a 9-point ball game, they're 14 of 20 from the free throw line. That's been an emphasis for head coach Jamal Mosley the last couple of days at shoot around this morning in Boston. Is the charity stripe has been a spot that the Magic have benefited from all season long, and you've done a good job keeping your opponent off of the free throw line for most of the season. It's going to be a big key here tonight, and it's ultimately, I think, what was the downfall of the Magic in game 4.
And still struggling to find that consistent scoring from the bench, from someone other than Paolo and Franz. So how do they do that tonight?
That's been one of the biggest questions that you have to give credit to the Boston Celtics. I think what's getting swept under the rug here, because Orlando all season long wasn't the most stellar offensive team. This Boston Celtics team was top 5 in defense in the regular season for a reason. And as much as Orlando is affecting Boston on the defensive end, the Celtics are returning the favor. Averages through 4 games in round 1 series in the NBA. The Magic are the only team in the league with only 2 players averaging 10 or more points a game. Everyone else, the average per team is about 4.5 players averaging in double-digit scoring. It's been unreliable, inconsistent for the Magic supporting cast. Paolo and Franz are playing on a holy level right now. They've been the most impressive part about this series, have been the 2 young stars for Orlando, defying the odds to make these games competitive. You're not getting that third scoring punch. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shooting 25% from deep in this series. KCP was brought in to this Magic team to help defensively and buy into that identity, into the Magic principles, which he has done, and also to be that veteran leader and shot maker in the postseason. He's a guy that's been getting the minutes. He's averaging over 30 minutes a night. He's getting the shot volume. He's just knocking them down. So game 5, hostile crowd. The last thing the Celtics want to do is head back to Orlando for game 6. If Orlando is able to force that feat, I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has to be a key piece of the winning recipe.
And we also haven't seen the Magic really be able to stop Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. And so how important is that if they want to win tonight?
Yeah, Jason Tatum in Orlando was huge. Obviously, he missed game 2 that was in Boston. Jaylen Brown with a 36-point performance in that game. It's kind of a 1A and 1B scenario where Jaylen Brown, the finals MVP a season ago, when Tatum was healthy as well. So those two are a handful, as well as the supporting cast. Here's with the Celtics, why I think the Magic have continued to keep these games competitive is the supporting cast in game 1 and 2 for Boston, the Peyton Pritchards, the Derek White, who had a solid game 4. Those guys were contained in game 3 when Orlando came out on top. You have to take your medicine to a point where you know that Jason Tatum is going to be scoring into the 30s. He's going to get his double-digit free throw attempts as he has all series. Jaylen Brown is going to be unconscious at times, forcing his way to the lane and being available for outside shots. But rather than focusing on the head of the snake, this is where you head for the body. How can you keep Peyton Pritchard scoreless like you did in game 4? How can you keep Sam Hauser off of the bench from being a difference maker from the perimeter? Can you continue to harass Kristaps Porzingis, making him miss shots that generally he makes? I think those are more key factors to watch for tonight.
All right, let's get to your bottom line prediction for tonight, Tyler.
It can go very different ways here. One thing that we haven't seen from the Celtics, and credit to Orlando in the principles, I think, Garrett, Orlando has been the more impressive team in this series, despite being down 3-1. Boston seems beatable, and it's why these games have been within 10 points. I think that will continue here tonight. The Magic are playing with house money. Their back's up against the wall. Win or go home. Any saying that you want. This is the Magic season here tonight, and they've been playing like that all series long. I expect this one to be competitive, but what we haven't seen from the Celtics in a game this series, this was the most explosive offensive unit, the most explosive three-point unit that we've seen in NBA history. The Celtics haven't been able to play that style at all in this series. I wonder if tonight in the elimination closeout game might be the game that we finally do see the Celtics go for 15 made threes, shooting 37% from beyond the perimeter. Those are my two predictions to kind of hedge it. I think we're either fixing for a Boston blowout here. It's all offense for Boston, or the gritty physical Magic group continues to keep this one close, and it comes down to another 4-minute style of a ball game.
Well, on the plus side for the Magic, as long as they don't lose by 55 points, it won't be the worst playoff performance we've seen from a Florida team in the playoffs this year.
The Magic are the last team in Florida still dancing, and that has to matter for something.
Exactly. All right, Tyler Karen, we appreciate you joining us. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live and a live look at Epic Universe. You see the Stardust Racers are rolling, and this comes on the afternoon as we have heard from Universal that they are expanding previews of Epic Universe. Joining us live now via Zoom and from Epic Universe is Theron White, lead publisher of EYNTK.info. And Theron, looks like a beautiful day to be out at Celestial Park.
Yeah, you just saw Stardust Racers from the outside, and here it is quite again. We right behind me. It's still rolling here in the park. It's only running one side today, but again, we're in previews, so that happens.
But some big news when it comes to previews, because we know some more people are going to get access to the park before it officially opens on May 22nd. So tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, so anyone right now, anyone in the general public can buy a ticket to visit Universal Epic Universe for any of the leftover days. They could be sold out by the time you're hearing this, but for any of those days up until May 19th. Now, there's slightly different pricing depending on if it's a weekend or depending on what day you're doing. That being said, if you're someone and you don't want to buy a hotel room or you don't have the annual pass, you don't have the military pass, that's okay. You can buy a ticket to visit Universal Epic Universe as of tomorrow. I mean, you could buy it right now, be right here tomorrow.
That's pretty exciting. We just pulled up a couple of minutes ago the tickets page, and it's giving a 17-minute estimated wait time, which is more than we were seeing earlier. So it seems like there is certainly demand for this, certainly a lot of excitement for this now being opened up to more people.
Yeah, the news is getting out quick. I don't know how many tickets they're going to have. From what we are aware of, it sounds like from the rumors, is that they're still going to be doing a reduced capacity because, again, the park is not officially open. So some rides could be down, some shows might not be operating. But, I mean, this is now my 5th time in the park for these previews. Almost everything is operating. The only thing that's going to give you a little bit more difficulty, you will be trying to get on the Harry Potter Battle at the Ministry of Attraction that requires that virtual queue. But, I mean, the restaurants are open, the shows are open, the park is here, and I mean, it is quite nice to be able to get into this park before it's at full capacity.
Yeah, I was going to ask about what folks can expect. You have been there now several times, and I'm just curious kind of what the differences you have maybe seen in some of your visits.
Yeah, so when I first came here, there were certain rides that just were not running at 100%. So the Monsters Unchained attraction had a lot of downtimes. Of course, that can still happen on a normal day, even once the park is open. But I'm seeing a lot more uptimes for a majority of these attractions. Because it's early preview, there is always the chance that they could be filming on some of the rides or in some of the shops. So you should know about that. But generally, I mean, all of the park is really operating. Every time I've gone and seen a show now, it's been a lot better. When I saw some of their initial shows, like the Cirque Arcanu, which is a fantastic show in the Harry Potter section, the first time I saw it, they were having a lot of issues, a lot of things when they were initially testing it out. But now I've seen the show again since, ran flawlessly, went to the queue quick. It was great.
And so the ticket prices we've seen $144 to $154 a day for these for non-pass holders right now. Still worth it with it being in previews and maybe not necessarily knowing what you may or may not be able to experience?
I think 100%, because yes, you're kind of guessing on certain things and you don't know for 100%. That being said, the reduced capacity is so nice. And once this park opens and it gets even more famous, this place, I'm sure, is going to be slammed throughout this summer and this upcoming year and continuing. I like these previews a lot. It feels so less stressful, especially days like today where the park didn't open till 11. I don't know. I kind of like just being able to walk into the park. I don't have to get here until 10:30. You go in, you get to go enjoy a nice meal. The park is open until 9. You know, it's just, I feel like it takes a lot of the stress out of it. Now, if you're only visiting here once, of course, I don't expect to do every single attraction. Don't expect to do every single show. But I think because it is a preview, you're going to be able to really, really enjoy what you can get to do.
And what kind of, I know we asked you, I think it may have been your first visit, what kind of stood out to you, but has that changed at all as far as what your favorite aspects of the park are?
So Celestial Park is still my favorite. I just love the fact that it is so beautiful. It's so gorgeous. You can walk around and just enjoy it. But I've learned to love a lot of other little details inside of the park. I'm actually heading right now into Super Nintendo World. The gamification of this land is so cool. And I think that's one thing that pass holders are going to end up loving, because you can come here again and again and play these games and go and try out different things and see some of the characters. That's a part that I've really learned to love. And I mean, this land, it has a lot to it. It is colorful, it's bright, it's full of life. Super Nintendo World is truly incredible. I understand why it's been so popular across the world.
Which of the worlds is it Super Nintendo World that in your visits has kind of been the biggest draw, you think, for folks?
100%. Super Nintendo World is always the busiest thing here. Usually the rides, meeting the characters, going to get the food, it dominates the park when it comes to the wait times. Can't give an exact estimate yet on the Harry Potter Battle at the Ministry attraction, just because that is a virtual queue and we don't know exactly. But I mean, you can see behind me, it's quite popular here, even in previews with reduced capacity.
Yeah, I love the immersive nature of it, and just how it really does look like you just stepped right into a video game just with a few steps of going through that portal.
Oh, 100%. We started this call and we were out in Celestial Park. It's beautiful. You've got stained glass, you've got a carousel. And now you look behind me and I might as well have jumped right into the Super Nintendo World video game. We've got the characters, we've got the people playing behind us. And I mean, this is just one section. There's the Donkey Kong section. There's even more. There's a lot of things to explore in just this one land. And of course, there's 5 altogether.
All right, good stuff. Theron White, lead publisher of EYNTK.info. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us from Epic Universe this afternoon, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day out there.
Thank you so much. Please keep your fingers crossed so I can get that virtual queue for Harry Potter. Haven't gotten on yet. I hope to get back to you guys soon and tell you how great it was.
All right, hoping today is the day then, Theron. Best of luck to you.
Have a great day.
And again, here is the look at the ticket queue, because those preview tickets are now available. The dates that were at least initially available were single-day tickets open until Monday, May 19th. So that would have been the Monday leading up to the opening of the park on May 22nd. We know that May 3rd, May 4th are already sold out, and we were trying to get in to see what other dates might be available or what kind of showed at the latest. But you're still seeing some wait time. It looks like, let's see if I can pull that down. It looks like about 13-minute wait time still before we can get in for the tickets there. So be prepared if this is something you're interested in to wait a few minutes in the queue before you might be able to access tickets. Unclear, again, what the capacity might be for that, as Theron was talking about, a lot lower capacity than it's going to be when the park actually opens. So certainly something to be aware of if you are trying to get those tickets for the previews of Epic Universe that before were limited to pass holders, team members, but now anyone can get on and order those, again, between $144 and $154 per day for those single day tickets. So a lot of excitement for that. We know a lot of folks waiting in line now to get those tickets. Give you another live look here at Epic Universe. It is a beautiful Tuesday afternoon here in Central Florida, and folks out there making the most of it at Epic Universe. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Florida Live. Been a busy show here today. What did we have? 5 interviews, something like that. So a busy show. We appreciate you joining us today and every day at 2 o'clock here on Fox Local, Fox13News.com, Fox35Orlando.com, and also on YouTube. We'll be back here tomorrow at 2 o'clock for another live hour of Florida Live. But as we wrap up here, I'll go ahead and send you back to that live view of Epic Universe. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.